Today I wanted to tune in and talk a little bit about group manifestation or manifesting for a collective. And I'm really passionate about this right now because we are in an incredible opportunity where we are lifting the veil on a lot of these institutions and structures in the third dimension. And those of us that are alive during this time really get to participate in the coming age by not only enacting things in the spirit world, but also in the third dimension. And so what I would like to invite people to remember when they're doing witchcraft is that sometimes it can feel like a lot of it's in our head, a lot of it's in our heart or in our body, or even just in our immediate life. But really, magic itself is all about participating in this web of energy that covers the universe, which is a word that encapsulates something so infinite that we cannot even perceive it, right? There's all of these things going on in other dimensions, and there are energies that we participate in that we aren't even aware of when we're doing witchcraft. And so what I want to invite people to kind of imagine when they're doing magic or doing witchcraft or doing spells is that all of their energy is really coming from somewhere, right? All of our energy is coming from somewhere. And a lot of the things that we participate in, such as the moon phases or any kind of astrology that we're doing. In my case, like studying history is one of the ways that I practice magic. For other people, it can be, ritualistic spell work that's very dramatic. All of those things have a connection to not only living beings on this earth, but also entities and beings all over the collective map, most of which are, like entities from your ancestry or from your bloodline or from the place that you came from cosmically. So, when we're doing witchcraft and we kind of maybe want to sort of keep it to ourselves, it's really difficult to do that, almost impossible. But we do also generate a lot of energy. We generate so much witchy, magic ass energy. It is infinite, really, the amount that we're able to achieve, and we're kind of stuck in these slow bodies, and so sometimes it can feel like that's not true, but we do have everything that is mapped out externally is also mapped internally. So those are some things that we would like to remember about doing magic and practicing witchcraft. And then that moves us into manifesting collectively. So we may have noticed that we are in a situation now in our world that, how do I say this? There are so many different conflicting ideas of what our world is supposed to be that it can be hard for us to imagine the way the world should be, right? And so the first thing to do is to just kind of throw out how the world should be, because that shit's not useful. Anytime you're thinking about shoulds or shouldn'ts, it's a limiting belief. It's a limiting belief based on our personal experience of the world, our personal desires for the world, our personal participation in the world, our personal perception, our in, our out, our filters. So when we think about a should, it's really hard for us to manifest collectively. And some organizations kind of do this. I consider work in the real world to be also manifestation. So if there's like an environmentalist collective that is lobbying for, whatever the fuck, then they are collectively manifesting how they believe the world should look. And that's fine. It's probably still useful, but it's definitely based on their own values. And not everyone on the globe shares our personal values, which is why the word should becomes a huge trap for people that are really trying to make the world in this dimension a better place, right? So one reframe that we want to start with when we're doing collective manifestation is not really looking at how the world should be, but instead how the world could be. And this opens it up to any perception that aligns with yours rather than closing it off to perceptions that don't, right? So if we think of perceptions as kind of strands that are leading from our mind and our heart and our solar plexus and our toes, there are all of these perceptions that we have that are, just manifesting, just sending shit out all the time. Maybe you're not aware of it, or maybe you're not really tuned into that, but all of our manifestations are coming out of us all the time. It's beautiful. And when we are able to match our little web of manifestations that's coming out of us really closely with someone else, then all of those resonant threads align and it creates like this stronger rope so that the net can get thicker and stronger, which may not be a useful metaphor, but it's really the only way that I can imagine it. Everything is like a web or a map or a net. And so when we're aligning and we're in resonance with people, this is the other part of it, is sound as well, which is why speaking is so important. But when we're in a space with maybe, let's say, like one other person who has like almost our exact same vision for the world, by being with that person, we are manifesting that world. We are manifesting it through conversation, through touch, through our ideas and our behaviors in that time with one another. We are not only creating a world in this little bubble, but we are also strengthening the vibration of the things that we desire. And then that vibration shakes the whole house. It shakes the whole neighborhood. And so the more people that you get in your space that align with your perceptions and your ideas and your desires for the world, the more that starts to resonate and to vibrate out into the space. And so one of the reasons we want to be sure that we're using words like could or can instead of should or shouldn't is because we really want to invite the parts of ourselves that resonate instead of the parts of ourselves that do not resonate. Because if you have 5 people in a room and they're all saying like, yes, we should be planting trees this many times a year, and this is who should be in charge of everything, and like all these lists of things that they desire for the world. That list may be the same, but there's so many other things that come with that. Something to remember right now in this time that we're in is someone can have a list of all of the same things that you have, except they are a white supremacist, either internalized or externalized in their life, or they believe in a kind of violence that you don't believe in, or they don't believe in any violence. And so you feel like the way that they see their frame as pacifist won't really get the collective anywhere, right? And so when we're trying to rigify, that's the word that's coming up, rigify our ideas and our expectations for the world around us, then we are knocking all of the excellent vibration that's happening and putting our energy into the vibrations that we really don't want. We really want to focus on where we agree and where we don't. So if you're trying to like collectively manifest with a group of people, it's really important to keep people out that have a kind of dissonance that would really knock what you're trying to do. For example, like having an internalized fetishization of oppression, or being like really attached to the idea of martial law, like stuff that's just like really not useful. Like we probably want to weed that out. As far as people that we're inviting into these group manifestation situations, or if we feel really close with the group that we're manifesting with and we kind of know that ideologically there are some things that are dissonant between us people, then we can put it in the center, we can name it, and then we can just like let it float away. And we can say to the person that has these kind of contradictory beliefs or beliefs that are not serving the vibration that we're kind of going for, we can just ask them to really not imagine that at this time. And instead, we're just going to imagine the things that we all agree on. This is really useful because human beings often disagree, and at different points in our lives, we believe different things. So we may just not be at a place yet where we can imagine achieving a better world without some of this stuff in between. And so what we can invite people that are in our group to do is just remove that shit in between for now, journal about it later, talk to your therapist about it, write a philosophy blog, whatever. But right now we want to focus on these goals. And so I hope that makes sense of kind of like really cultivating the things that you want out of a group manifestation, and trying your best to kind of remove the things that you don't without ostracizing or creating an argument or a disagreement, which in groups can happen. We all have different perspectives for a reason because we are supposed to mold each other. So really no experience is bad or wrong, but if we do have a specific goal in mind, we really want to be mindful of how we're reaching that goal. And so when we're manifesting in a group, my invitation would be to have everyone sit in a circle and begin with dialogue. And so this is why it's important to remove words like should and remove ideologies that are not serving of the manifestation spell, is because once we get to the point where we're having a dialogue in this circle, we are creating a situation where we're aligning our beliefs closely and we're imagining what that world would look like. We can do this for our neighborhood. We can do this for our friend group, our church group. We can do it for the globe. And all we have to do is talk about it. That's why we have words, because our words become reality. And so however long you feel that you need to, I would recommend like 45 minutes to an hour. Have some tea and just talk about this world or this event, even if you're doing like a collective demonstration or a party or a fundraiser. Talk about the ideal scenarios that all of you agree on. During this time, there may be something that happens where someone doesn't really quite resonate, and so y'all can maybe have a symbol for how to deal with that. Like maybe like brushing it off would be an interesting way to do that, so that you can kind of get it out. But also keep in mind, this isn't a time for dissonance. So if it doesn't really resonate with you, this is a really good quality to practice. Instead of fighting with someone or disagreeing with them, literally just brush it off, because it just doesn't serve the higher purpose at this time. And you can take that from this spell into any other position in your life and you will be thriving, because argument is just manifesting shit you don't want. And so when you're in this space and you're speaking, you could also find maybe a couple words or a couple phrases that really resonate in the collective. Even during the conversation, you can kind of have it guided towards like, these are some sentences that we feel really serves what we're trying to do. So if we're trying to bring in a space of like acceptance for our business or something, let's imagine a bunch of people in business clothes sitting on the floor doing this, right? Let's imagine that, because that's what I want, right? And so there's all of these business people sitting on the floor. They've kind of reached an ideal of how they want their business to be run, and they're just having a conversation about what that would look like. What are our documents going to be branded with? What kind of people are we going to reach? How are we going to change during this journey? How are we going to change the world during this journey? How are we going to change economics and politics and philosophy just by being here in this space and producing this business, right? Or this event, or this neighborhood, or this community. And so in that conversation, we brush off the stuff that we don't want. We distill it down to a couple of sentences, which you could also think of as a mission statement, which I just thought about just now. And then you want to scramble different syllables around so that it is no longer recognizable. So what we want to do is create a situation where our subconscious looks at the words and sees let's think of a good example. Our community does so much good to each other that it attracts attention that inspires other communities to do the same. I just came up with that. So that's your thing, right? And so you'll take some base words like good and community, and attention, things that are really important and potent about that sentence, and then create different words out of them that aren't even in the English language, so that your subconscious can access all of the data without your conscious mind trying to block your shot, right? Because we see those words and you know what? We don't believe them. If we believed them, our community would already be doing so much good to each other that it attracted attention and inspired other communities to do the same, right? If we believed that, it would already be happening. So that's why we need to get over this roadblock that we have in our head that it's not possible. And we do that by making the words that we're reading unrecognizable. And then you can turn those little words, let's say, tina, shit like that. Might sound a little Latin. It's just gibberish. You're just speaking in tongues you created yourself because you're a creative human. And then use those base sounds to create a chant. And this chant can go on for anywhere between 1 and 20 minutes. Keep in mind, chanting, especially in a group, is very powerful. It can be really energetically draining. It requires a lot of breath. You might want to include maybe like water that's close by. Take breaks during the chanting if you need to. Try to move your body if you can, because you can really start locking up your energy when it's all stuck here in your throat chakra, which like even just thinking about chanting is like giving me the buzz. It'll definitely get you all buzzed. And then when you feel complete in the chant for a set amount of time, please set a timer. Otherwise you could roll over into somebody else's world and, accidentally wake up some deity you didn't mean to. And then close out the chanting, talk a little bit about how the chanting felt with each other to decompress, and then stand up, move away from the space, and do something else. Eat dinner, dance to music, that would be fun. Read something out loud to one another, watch a movie, do something that is in the third dimension, physically, that will kind of get you out of that headspace and honor the resonance that you created when you were chanting together. So that from start to finish is a group manifestation spell. I really appreciate you listening. I hope that this works in your world, and I am sending lots of love.